The story starts in 2008. Jim's mother is telling her story about the love of her life. She had met her husband when she was 17. She had been at a pool and he had come up to her. He had asked her to join him and his friends for a couple of beers and she did, without telling her real age. She describes her husband, Greg, as a tender and gentle guy. When they got married they had their first son, Casey, and soon after, Jim was born. She tells how she's waiting for a priest to come and bless the house. It has been a tradition for many years and she's thankful to God, because he had given her children great opportunities. Casey, the older son, has joined the Navy and Jim is close to graduating. The family has dinner after the priest had left. The father makes a toast, and they have an amazing time as a family. Jim catches a glance at his parents after dinner. He sees them at peace and in love, and wishes that for himself. Greg goes to work the next day and is called for a private conversation. It is not a great period for Americans because almost all of them are getting fired. The same happens for Greg as he is told the purpose of the meeting had been to part ways. His boss hands him the papers and tries to reassure him that he's not the only one being fired. But that doesn't help Greg as he leaves crushed and disappointed. He goes down the subway and tries to calm down, but can't seem to because he never expected it to happen to him. He goes home and tells his wife. Jim comes back from school and hears about the situation. He goes to his dad and makes sure he knows that his son is there for him. Greg tries to change the topic of the conversation and asks Jim about school. Jim says that he's going through college applications and is going to try for a running scholarship. Greg reassures him that he will do whatever it takes to get him into the college he wants. Jim thanks and kisses his father on the head as he says goodnight. Kay goes to work the next morning as Greg sits in the house and looks for job applications. Jim is doing his casual running laps when his friend catches up to him and asks about the essay they had for homework. Jim realizes that he hadn't done it and rushes to get it done in 20 minutes. He finishes the essay and goes to the library. As he searches through the books, he sees a beautiful girl on the other side. He can't seem to keep his eyes off of her as he sneaks looks, making sure she doesn't notice him. Later on, he sees the same girl rehearsing for a play in the school theater. He sneaks in and watches her perform. He goes to her class with a note in his hand. He goes up to the teacher, hands the note, and says that the note is from a professor. The note is handed to Anna and both of them head out. Jim admits to Anna that he had written the note and that no professor wanted to talk to her. Anna is confused, but Jim tells her that they're in a different class, so that was the only time he was able to see her. Anna tells him that they need to go back to class, and Jim tells her she has pretty eyes. After classes are over, Anna spots Jim in his car. She goes to him and asks him for a ride. He says yes and they head on. They climb a small hill where beautiful scenery can be seen. Jim asks her whether she's going to be an actress and Anna says that she is not sure, but the exercises in her class sure seem fun. She goes on to show him what they do and they laugh about it because it's silly. Jim takes a rock off the ground and puts it in his pocket. Anna giggles at his actions and asks about the rock. Jim hands it to her and tells her to keep it. She tells him that he doesn't need to take her out of class to see her again, and he tells her that she doesn't have to walk home anymore. Anna asks him whether she can call him for the weekend, and Jim is pleasantly surprised as he says yes. As Anna is getting ready for bed, her mother comes in and asks her why she had arrived home so late. She tells her about the date with Jim, and her mother tells her that she's at a good age for dating. She should go out with different guys so she can make her choice when she decides to settle down. Her mother leaves and Anna is left in thought. She takes the rocks Jim had given her and smiles before going to bed. The next morning arrives and we see Kay walking into her Aunt Irene's house. Sonia, the aunt's caretaker, tells Kay that she is quitting because of her aunt's behavior. She begs her to stay due to her aunt's condition, but Sonia refuses and says that it would be best if the aunt was admitted to a retirement home. Kay goes to her aunt and tells her that Sonia had quit, and that she had been the second caretaker to quit in only 6 weeks. His aunt doesn't care and says that she can pay for another one. Kay tells her that she doesn't have the finances and she blames her for stealing. Irene breaks down and Kay hugs her. She tells her that the time has come for her to go to a home where all of her needs will be taken care of. Irene starts screaming and refusing to go to a retirement home. She says that Kay hates her, and Kay tells her that she only wants to help her. She also says that she cannot pay for her any longer, but Irene kicks her out of the house. We see Greg at an interview while Kay is dealing with Irene. He is asked to talk about his background. He tells the interviewer that he is a portfolio manager and an investment strategist. He says that his strengths are that he is very organized and methodical. His former colleagues even called him a planner. He dodges the question about his weaknesses and goes straight to his family. He says that he wants to earn more and the reason behind it is his family. He wants to provide for them. His interview goes well, but he leaves knowing that he won't be called back. The family has dinner at their place with Greg's brother. He tells them that his wife, Trish, had gotten a second job because she wants to provide for the family. Greg and Kay are happy and Greg starts giving him advice on how Trish could make the best of the situation. He is cut off by his brother who tells him that he doesn't need his advice because he is a loser just like everybody else. Kay tries to ease the situation and laughs at it like it was a joke. She tells Jim to help her clean up and Greg is left with his brother. He starts rubbing it in his nose the fact that he was fired. He tells him it must be hard to give up the luxurious life and for that he had it coming to him. This upsets Greg, but he tries to keep his cool. The weekend comes and Jim goes to Anne's birthday party. The party goes great and both of them can't seem to keep their looks off of each other. They play different games that involve alcohol and dares. It is Anne's turn to pick a dare. She reads the paper and the dare is to kiss the 3 people on her right. Jim is the 3rd person sitting to her right and he gets excited. A girl kisses Anne first and she rates it a 7 out of 10. Then a random guy kisses her and she rates it an 8. It is time for her to kiss Jim. He leans in and kisses her softly. She says 10 immediately without any hesitation. Anne blows out her candles after making her wish while looking at Jim. The next morning at school, Anne is surrounded by her friends. They tell her that Jim is weird and rather awkward. They admit that he is cute, but he's just different. Anne says she likes him, but they don't care as they continue to insult him. He dresses weirdly like he's older. He's never around, and Anne's birthday is the only party he has ever been to. They tell her that he is a different guy and that he doesn't need her. Anne doesn't listen to them and goes with him after school. She gets into his car and he gives her a late birthday present. It is a CD. He had made her a mix of songs. She tells him to play it because she wants to hear it immediately. They have a nice ride home and they arrive in front of Anne's house. They get out of the house and lean on the car. The tension can be felt in the air as Jim and Anne look into each other's eyes. They don't waste any more time as they lean in to kiss. Time goes by and their relationship blossoms. They spend their summer together and Jim takes her to meet his parents. They have fun and his family approves of her. Some time passes and Aunt Irene's health deteriorated. Kay goes by her house and they have tea. Irene asks her about the situation and says that she had heard her talk on the phone. She knows that Greg's out of work. Kay tells her that they're on it, but Irene warns her not to end up like her mother. She says that her mother had her life taken from her because she was left to take care of her daughter alone. The alcohol and substance were just something to cope with, and that is what took her life away from her. She tries to lighten up the situation by joking about Kay's mother making fun of her situation and saying that she's lost her mind. They laugh and for a moment everything seems to be fine. Irene tells her that she shouldn't keep everything inside. That will make her feel even worse. She tells her to give, share, and connect. Kay thanks her for the kind words and takes her hands in hers. Kay and Greg can be seen going to a party, and Greg asks her about a colleague of hers that is very chatty. He asks her to make sure he's not cornered by anyone about his losing his job. Kay tells him that she's by his side and won't let that happen, so there's nothing he can worry about. Greg is known to give good business advice, so a lot of Kay's colleagues come to him and ask. While Greg and Kay are at a party, Jim and Anne have a pool day. They have lots of fun and are happily surprised to find out that Anne's mom isn't home. They get intimate and make love. Things are not looking well for Greg as he cannot get the fact that he is jobless out of his mind with everyone asking him for business advice. He goes to grab some drinks for himself and his wife and sees her talking to a successful businessman. He goes over to them and introduces himself to the man. He immediately starts talking about the current situation in America, about the firing that has been going on, and assumes that Greg hasn't been fired. This makes the situation rather awkward as Greg has to pretend and lie that everything is fine at work. Greg and Kay sit down at a table and have small talk. Greg invites Kay to dance with him, and she tells him that it's a silly idea because there isn't music playing, plus no one is dancing. Greg tells her that he doesn't care because she's really good at it, and she gives in. They start dancing and Kay calls him forgetful. He asks her how so, and she says that it was their anniversary. He starts apologizing immediately, but Kay asks him to just wish her a happy anniversary. They hug and she tells him that she loves him as well. We see Jim and Anne lying in bed, cuddling and holding each other. Jim asks her whether their intimate moment changes anything, and she says that nothing will change. He looks at her deep into her eyes and tells her that he loves her. Anne doesn't know how to respond and looks away. Anne has dinner later on in the night with her mother. She asks her whether she'll see Jim in the summer, and she says that there's no reason for her not to. Her mother tells her that she is going to start a new life soon. Going to college in New York will allow her to meet new people and have new experiences. Plus, she would be so far from Jim. Anne asks her why she's telling all of that to her, and she says that she doesn't want her happiness to depend on one person, especially not on a boy. She tells her that she has noticed that she's been unhappy, and the reason for that could be Jim. She doesn't need a boy to have amazing things in her life. This puts Anne in thought. She doesn't know what to do with Jim and what the smartest decision could be. Anne and Jim sit in her room and play a drawing game. Anne tells him that she had gotten into the college she initially applied for in New York. Jim hugs her and kisses her while congratulating her. She smiles but can't seem to shake the feeling of guilt, and asks him about his opinion on their situation. He tells her that they could call and text and they could even plan trips, but Anne tells him that she hasn't thought about it because they have a long time before she goes. This saddens Jim, but he says nothing of it. Kay goes to the tax office and asks for a third extension of tax payments. She is denied such a thing, and the man tells her that she will have to sell the house so she's able to pay the debt. She says that there must be another way, and the man tells her that the only option is for her husband to get a job immediately. She tells him that he cannot get any job because of his reputation, but they're working on it. The man doesn't leave her with other choices, and she understands what must be done. She goes home and sits down to talk to Greg. She says that it has been 6 months since he was fired and their situation isn't looking good. She suggests getting a second job, and Greg tells her that there's no need for that because he's gotten more callbacks, and there is a possibility of him getting a job. She says that their fall budget is really low and the second job is more of a plan B. He asks her whether she's scared and she says that she isn't, but they need to have a plan B in case things don't get better. She suggests selling the house if things don't get better, but Greg isn't fond of the idea. Kay begs him to have a serious conversation and think of a way that they could be out of debt, but Greg believes that he will get a job soon. Jim overhears the whole conversation and gets angry, as that's not the only bad thing happening to him at the moment. He goes on his usual lap run the next morning at school and all of his problems rush through his mind. He waits for Anne after school, but he's surprised to see her getting into somebody else's car. He is confused and heartbroken as he watches the car drive off. Tears fill up his eyes as he reminisces about the time they were together. When he had first seen her beautiful face, when they were making love, it all seems to be too much for the young man as anger fills him up. They meet at the place they had their first date. They have a fight and Jim looks distraught as he tries to get close to her, but she pulls herself away from him. He cries, but she doesn't seem fazed by it. Some time passes and he goes to her house. Her mother opens the door and lies that Anne had gone out, but Anne appears behind her and tells her that she will have a talk with Jim. He asks her where things stand and she doesn't have an answer for that. He asks her whether he can call her and she doesn't give him a clear answer. Tears fill his eyes again as he asks her whether they're done. She tells him not to call it that and says that she cares about him. Jim looks away and she tries to make him feel better by saying that they had fun, and he is in disbelief that their relationship was just a fling for her. We see Anne in her room breaking things and making a mess with tears in her eyes. Breaking up with Jim isn't something she wanted to do, but she had to because she thinks that's the best for them. It's a devastating time for the family because Aunt Irene has passed away. We see Kay kissing her aunt's hand for the last time. They pay all their respects in the church, but Kay can't seem to face the fact that her aunt is gone. Graduation comes and Jim graduates from school with really good grades, ready to go to UCLA. He sits with his friend on the bleachers, and they talk about their plans for the future. His friend is starting an internship and Jim congratulates him. His friend asks him about his plans, and Jim reveals that he has been accepted to UCLA. His friend asks him why he hasn't told anyone yet, but hugs him and congratulates him anyway. Jim spots Anne on the field and looks at her. His friend notices him looking and tells him to forget about her, and Jim shakes his head in agreement. He gets down from the bleachers onto the field ready to leave, when a guy comes up to him and starts asking how was he able to get into Anne's pants. Jim is in disbelief as he asks the guy what he meant by that. The guy repeats the same and says that he has been trying for weeks to get intimate with her, but nothing works, so his advice might help. Jim pushes him and they start fighting. Anne sees the fight and runs to break it off. The boys stop fighting once Anne comes to separate them. She turns to Jim and asks him what was wrong with him. He tries to explain himself but sees that it's no use, because Anne won't believe him, so he leaves her there with the boy. He goes home upset and he sees his parents. They tell him that they have to talk to him about something but feel like it isn't the right time. Jim says that they need to tell him, and they tell him that they plan on selling the house. Jim asks whether they're going to move, and they tell him that they are going to move and he will go to UCLA. Tears fill up his eyes, but he hides them when asked about it and says that he's just tired. Some time passes and they get the house empty. Jim is sitting at the door frame of his room when his father comes up to him. He asks him what's going on with him, but Jim tells him that he's fine. His father tells him that he can read him like an open book. He asks about Anne and Jim stays silent. He apologizes for asking, but Jim tells him that he doesn't know what to do. He wants to call her but can't seem to do it. His father tells him to give it time. Jim asks him how long he has to wait, and Greg says that if she's the one, she will come back to him one day. Kay looks through the empty house that was once their home for the last time and wipes her tears, while closing the door and leaving forever. 2 years pass and we see Jim coming back home. He sneaks into his parents' apartment and surprises his mother. She hugs him and kisses him on the cheek. He makes coffee and brings it to his father. He sits down to have some coffee with his father and says that he drinks coffee because the college had made him. He asks about the job situation, and his father tells him that he does some odd jobs, but he's lucky that Jay has the position she has at her job. Jim suggests Greg call his brother, but Greg says that people don't answer their phones once they know that you need something from them. Jim tries to make him feel better by saying that it's not his fault, but Greg says that it's only his fault. This saddens Jim and he goes to his room. He has a conversation with his mother on the balcony so Greg wouldn't be able to hear them. She tells him that she is worried about Greg's mental health. He has scared her because he told her that he would be worth more dead than alive. She tells Jim that Greg feels like he had disappointed him and his brother, and Jim tells her that's not true. He offers her an envelope with money in it. He lies and says that he sold a computer and some sports stuff, but Kay says that she cannot take the money. He gives it to her and says that he wants to help and Greg doesn't have to know about it. Kay starts crying and Jim hugs her as she breaks down in his embrace. Jim goes into the park and and reads a book while sitting on the grass. He receives a message and opens it to hear a voicemail from Anne. She says that she was listening to the mixtape he had given her, and it reminded her of him. She says that she's sorry for the pain she has caused him and that she has grown to be a better person. She misses him, and if he wanted to talk to her and if he didn't hate her, she would love to. Jim dials her number immediately and gives her a call. She answers and he's happier than ever. She tells him that it's good to hear his voice, and he tells her that he doesn't hate her. He goes to meet his friend at a bar later in the night and tells him that he had spoken to Anne. His friend isn't so fond of the idea but is happy for him. Jim asks his friend to be honest, and his friend tells him that he shouldn't go back to the past. He had learned his lesson and it's time to move on. He is going to miss out on all the different opportunities and all the women and money if he keeps going back to the past. Jim tells him that he's fine, and his friend spots 3 young ladies across the table from them. He tries to change Jim's mind and be with one of the girls, but Jim doesn't budge and tells him that he will be waiting for him at their table. Jim and Anne meet the next day and Jim is left in awe when he sees her. She tells him he looks the same in the best way possible. They get closer and Jim compliments Anne's hair. It's a bit awkward, but they agree on walking in the park. Jim asks her whether she's planning on staying in New York after she graduates, and she tells him that she's not sure because graduation seems so far away. He tells her that she fits with the people there and she agrees. She asks him about his running and he says that he still does it. She tells him she wants to see him race again. Jim asks her whether she's dating anyone and she tells him that she isn't. She had gone on a couple of dates, but the guy ended up ghosting her. She says that she doesn't have any juicy detail and that the water's pretty shallow. She asks him about his dating life and he says that he hasn't had any in a joking way. They walk past a bride and Jim asks Anne whether she would be taking her wedding pictures like that. She says that she would love to, but not in that location. They end up coming to Anne's place and Anne offers Jim water. He says that he can get it and she goes to the other room. He waits for her to come back, but she doesn't. He goes to her room and sees her there sitting and waiting for him. He goes to her and grabs her hair while kissing her gently. They have an intimate moment and lay in bed after that. Anne had gotten a tattoo on her back and Jim notices it. He asks her about it and she says that a colleague had done it to her. Jim caresses the tattoo and says that it's beautiful. Anne asks Jim what is going to happen to them from that point. He asks her what she wants, and she tells him that she wants what they have at the moment. He offers to drive her to the airport, but she says no because it would be depressing. Jim smiles and respects her decision. She tells him that she loves him and that she has always loved him, but she wanted to make sure he knew. Tears fill her eyes. He wipes her tears and tells her not to cry. She tells him it's because she's happy and he hugs her tight. Kay comes back home and sees a rather depressed Greg sitting in a dark room. She asks him to put the blinds up, and he tells her that it gets too hot with an irritated voice. She asks about any callbacks, and he tells her that she will be informed if there's anything. She suggests updating his CV and Greg tells her that she's nagging. He asks her whether they could act like husband and wife without her jumping to a list of choirs every time she gets home. She says that she was just offering to help, and maybe there needs to be a little bit of nagging when she comes home to no dinner, and the TV being so loud. Greg doesn't want to hear it and tells her that he's going to the gym. She apologizes for her behavior and tells George that he needs to be more considerate. He doesn't talk to her and that upsets her even more. She tells him that they need to be talking so they can figure it out together. He walks past her and tries to walk out of the apartment. She gets to the door and slams it before he can get out. She tells him that she's here and she isn't walking away from the situation. But that doesn't faze him and he walks out without listening to any word his wife's telling him. While running, Jim passes out one day and he's taken to the hospital. The doctors tell Kay that he has a tear in his lung and needs to be operated on immediately. They operate on Jim and he goes home after a couple of days. He wakes up one morning and sees that Anne's by his side. She helps him recover quickly as she does some breathing exercises with him. She stays with him for a short period before she has to go back to college. Before she leaves, she sees Jim, and he thanks her for being there for him. Jim goes to his room and takes a ring that he had bought a month before. He takes it to his mom and she doesn't take it well. She tells him that he cannot get married at the moment, and asks him whether he had talked to her mother. He says that he will, and even though she was first against it, his mother hugs him and kisses him on the cheek. Jim goes to see Anne's mother the next morning. He tells her that he plans on going to Anne's graduation and he would love to propose to her there. Her mother starts asking him all sorts of questions and is disapproving of it at first, but she gives in as she hears how Jim talks about her daughter, with love in his words and eyes. Greg had started working a job he never considered, and with that came longer shifts. He comes back one night later than usual and Kay surprises him with great news. They had called back for him and wanted to have an interview. The only issue is that it's far from where Kay works. She says they'll figure it out. They settle on living in a lodge they visited all the time when they were younger. They get there and enjoy nature. Greg suggests another plan if the job doesn't work out. He tells Kay to move as far as they can, go to a different continent even. She smiles and doesn't say anything. Greg comes back from his interview and Kay asks him how it had gone. He tells her that it went well and that he isn't worried about it, and the only reason he doesn't worry is that he has his wife by his side. The day of the wedding comes and we can see a nervous Jim with Kay. She's helping him fix the tie and he sees tears in her eyes. He asks her what's wrong and she says that he had grown up so fast and she wants more time with him. He hugs her and says that everything's perfect. Anne walks down the aisle and greets her soon-to-be husband. She is as beautiful as the moment, and everyone can see it. Family and friends have gathered to share a special moment. The party continues at Anne's house. Her mother brings the cake and the bride and groom are ready to cut it. Kay pops the champagne and Greg proposes a toast. He says that these are the moments that make the best memories. He tells the couple to keep their family all the way to the end because that is what saves them. This beautiful story ends with Jim and Anne looking into each other's eyes with love, while everyone around them is celebrating for them.